Today I'm going to tell you exactly what you need to do in order to not drop your bike at slow speeds. So my first bike was a 600-pound Harley Davidson Street Bob, and I was using really poor technique when I got it. I mean, I could barely keep the bike up sometimes. And as a new rider, that was discouraging and it was very challenging. It also helped me build some bad behaviors to kind of account for my bad technique. So oftentimes, I couldn't just stand the bike up like I did at MSF using a 250cc Honda something, right? I really had to know how to control the bike and actually gain skills. I was doing everything from like not keeping my head and eyes up. I wasn't using the friction zone very well. I wasn't using rear brake to really control the bike, help get stability, none of it. The biggest part for me was panicking when I felt the bike falling, instead of exercising muscle memory and good technique. So here's a quick story that happened to me as I was training one day. I was working on turning from a stop. I was turning to my left, which I generally don't feel comfortable with, but it's always something I'm working on. So I'm turning to my left, and then I don't really have enough throttle. I'm not really having my RPMs up, and ultimately I begin to feel the bike drop. Well, I put my foot down and give it throttle, and the bike just slammed into the back of my ACL of my foot when I put my foot down. And it hurt so bad. I mean, I was limping for weeks. So the best thing to do to not injure yourself is just don't put your feet down. You're not gonna stop a 700-pound bike or a 300-pound bike even by just simply putting your foot down at speed. So here's an example of what happened to me. So I'm about to make a right turn, full lock. I'm in the friction zone. I start off and I feel the bike falling, but I throttle out of it. And not in the traditional sense of when in doubt, throttle out, but in this case, I'll slow it down. I was not actually in the friction zone enough, so my bike didn't actually have enough power. That's the real reason I felt falling. So what I did was, I kept my head and eyes up, I never put my foot down, and I simply added more throttle, and I fed the clutch out even more. That gave the bike sufficient power to stand up. Keeping my head and eyes up, I just turned the handlebars and directed the bike to where I wanted it to go, and I never had to put my foot down. Here's though how I learned to avoid it. Practicing feeding the clutch out when you feel falling. And that's not just popping the clutch out, like immediately just simply letting go of it. It's feeling yourself and your bike in the friction zone where you feel the bike moving, having your RPMs up where you feel the bike pushing forward a little bit, and then making sure that you give yourself additional throttle as you need to so that you don't actually fall. Because physics says when your bike is gaining momentum, the only thing your bike wants to do beyond 5 and 8 and 10 miles an hour is just stand up. That's why we've all seen so many videos where, somebody falls off their bike and the bike just keeps going down the road. So here's how you avoid falling at slow speeds. If you feel like your bike doesn't have enough power and you feel your bike tipping to one direction, you've got to keep your head and eyes up. Look in the direction that you want to go still. Do not look at the ground. You've got to feed that clutch out a bit. Make sure that you get into the friction zone and your bike is ready to get power. And then you've got to give your bike some throttle. When you throttle and you're releasing that clutch, you're signaling to your bike to add significantly more power to that rear wheel. And when that happens, physics says your bike is going to want to stand up. And that doesn't mean that it's automatically going to stand up and go the direction you want. You've still got to control it. But if your wheels are straight, your bike is straightened out, or you still have control of your bike, you're going to be able to work through it enough so that you don't have to put your foot down and fall. So, if you're still watching this, here's one more tip for you. Keep your hand off your front brake at slow speed. Use your rear brake and make sure that you're in the friction zone and control your throttle, and those three factors add stability. So you've probably seen this clip where I'm going 3 miles an hour, 4 miles an hour through a turn consistently, and the bike is not dropping. The reason for that is the bike is under torque, right? I've got sufficient power to the rear wheel, I'm in the friction zone, so there's a push and a pull factor happening. In order to keep that, you've got to keep your hand off that front brake. When you put your hand on your front brake at slow speed, especially at or under like 5 miles an hour, the bike only wants to fall to the ground. So again, that's be in the friction zone, give sufficient power for your throttle, lightly engage the rear brake for stability, and keep your hand off that front brake. Thanks for watching. Ride safe.